Good morning.
Good morning. It's March 13th, 2022, and our topic today is the way through sadness. And so we'll begin with an opening affirmative prayer, and we're going to do this ourselves. You want to join me with this?
Sure.
So we come together in consciousness and go within to that place where we know we are one with all that is, one with our Creator, one with the universe, one with our human race. And we know because we are one, when something happens with one part of the human race, the other part of the human race feels the feelings that are appropriate for that event. And so today, as we continue with the saga of the Ukraine invasion, we also feel the feelings associated with that event.
We allow ourselves to embrace those feelings, knowing that they are a part of all of the feelings that we need to experience in order to be able to have a full and complete life.
For we know without sadness, we would not ever develop empathy. And we do feel empathy for all of our fellow humans. So, although not giving thanks for the events, we give thanks for our ability to unite in consciousness and unite with our emotions. So we give thanks knowing that all is good. In the end, we release and together we say,
and so it is.
So it is. So our topic today, as I said, is the way through sadness. Because I speak to a number of people during the week, and you know, it's just a sad event to see this invasion and this war happening in our living rooms, and every time we turn on the radio. And we're going to talk about that. Bob and I have pretty deep discussions about it in the morning, including why do human beings have sadness? And we'll get to that later. But first, I wanted to share a prayer, and this is a Dalai Lama quote. And it says, the way through sadness is to use it as a motivation and generate a deeper sense of purpose. So I asked myself, what purpose would that be? And the purpose that comes to mind is what Gandhi said when he was fighting constant war in India. I'm fighting it through peaceful means. And what he said, what people needed to do, what we all needed to do, is to be the peace that we want to see in the world. So that to me, it is an extreme purpose. And that means peaceful interactions on all levels, just refraining from fighting and aggression, even verbally, even emotionally, and even when we feel it's justified. So that could be a deeper purpose. But I also wanted to share a writing by Ernest Holmes, who is the founder of our movement. And he doesn't often speak to this, so I think it's really great to hear. It's from his book, Know Yourself. And he says, I do not think that we should make such a claim to divinity that we forget that we're human. For our humanity proclaims the creativity of the divine. Human we are, doing the best we can, and ever seeking a fuller realization of our source. Our experience is filled with laughter and tears, singing and dancing, praying and exalting, and sometimes falling into the depths of despair. We need to have a good-natured flexibility toward all that we encounter, not fighting against life, but cooperating with it. So I thought that was wonderful to acknowledge that we are human. We believe we're connected to the divine, but we are not totally divine. And that we need to accept and understand that sometimes we will be sad when we're exposed to sad things that are happening in the world.
Well, and we were talking this morning about sadness and what is the function of sadness, or why do we have sadness? And then I immediately, because my brain works the way it works sometimes without my necessarily checking in with it, I saw a cheetah running. And I was reminded of a nature special I saw about cheetahs and their ability to run 80 miles an hour. But you see, their real gift is not that they can run 80 miles an hour. The real gift is a very long tail. And if you were to ask the cheetah, what is this tail thing? And he would say, I have no idea why I have a tail. All I know is it's behind me. And wherever I go, I don't look back at it because it's always behind me. So I don't know the function of a tail any more than we know the function of sadness. But what we discovered, or what they discovered in the research, was that the tail was what gave the cheetah the ability to balance. And that balance was critical for his being able to maneuver through whatever running he was trying to do, whatever chase he was involved in.
And sharp turns, right?
And very sharp turns. And I'm thinking sadness is like that cheetah's tail, in that it helps us balance. It helps us find the balance between all of the other emotions and all of the conditions and the circumstances. In a kind of way, it's an emotional soundtrack for what it is we're experiencing that we don't necessarily have words for or couldn't find words for. And so it's important. And on that track, I was thought back too of early on in my music listening experience when I first got into hi-fi and I was all excited about sound and being able to listen to it. I had an amplifier and it had a little thing called a scratch filter. And you could switch the scratch filter on and it would eliminate all the scratches on your records. It also eliminated all the high frequency sounds that were really wonderful that you would want to hear that the vocalist might be delivering. And so the problem with a filter is that it never just filters out one thing. It filters out all the things within that range. Mm-hmm. And if we could filter out sadness, unfortunately, it would have an impact on all of our other emotional body, which is important.
Which is one of the things that we found in therapy when we worked with people. It's called shutting down, when they shut down because they felt too much sadness and too much pain for too long. And so they just shut down all their feelings. But see, that also suppresses the joy, right, and the love. That their feeling range just becomes compressed. And so it reminds me of a supervisor that I had once who as a therapist, had a patient who committed suicide. And she was so sad for so long about it. And I told her that I was sorry that it hurt so much, that it was, that she was sad for so long. And she said, she looked at me kind of confused and she said, I wouldn't want to have any other feeling than the sadness that I'm having. Sadness is the appropriate feeling for this condition, for this situation. And I thought, well, of course it is. I'm just wanting to take away her pain. And I realized I can't do that. And her pain has a purpose. Mm-hmm. And so that's also true for us right now as we watch with sadness about what's happening in Ukraine and see it on television. And it seems unfair. And we hate to see the people going through that hardship. But also, I thought in childhood, if we didn't sometimes feel sad when other children are mean to us, how would we ever develop empathy? Mm-hmm. We have to know, oh, well, I wouldn't want to do that to them because I don't want them to feel this sadness. I don't want them to feel hurt. So that's how we develop empathy. Although some sources say we don't really develop empathy. That part of the brain doesn't really develop until about age 21.
Not fully, right?
Not fully, but
right.
There is some, of course, before that.
So one of the reasons that we often feel sad is because sadness is an emotion attached to the assessment that we've made of the condition that we're in.
True.
And the assessment that we've often made has a behind the scenes premise often. The behind the scenes premise for a lot of living is things should go well. I should be happy. I should be healthy. I should have all the money that I want. Relationships should all work. It's an unspoken desire seen as the ideal, the way things should be. And so often when they're not that way, we're sad, and the sadness is not the problem. The problem is that we've assessed the situation incorrectly, or we've assessed the situation in a way that allows or creates this emotional body. The other part of it,
we have the should, that everybody should have things go well all the time. And show me one person that that's true for, nothing. No human being has everything go well all the time. We have our sad events.
So what happens for some people is they deny and avoid. And sometimes what I've seen, and particularly amongst a lot of people in New Thought, is a kind of Pollyannish Everything is going to work out fine. Everything is great. Everything is perfect. Life is perfect. And the conclusion is to simply restate everything is good. Everything may be good in a grander sense, but we don't have that common sense to understand that grander sense. So what's really helpful for us, I think, is to say, I believe the universe is working in favor of creation and of creating greater and better. I don't see how it's working, though. I don't understand it. As opposed to say, it's all perfect, I'm fine, because behind the scenes, when you say everything is perfect and you don't feel that it's true, you're simply lying on the surface. You're polishing the veneer of an idea that doesn't really have very much depth. So I think the most appropriate thing we can say when there's wars and things is, it makes me sad. I don't understand all of what's going on, that this condition could occur or is occurring. I know in the grander sense, things will resolve themselves in a way that favors a positive outcome. A positive outcome meaning thriving. Those that are here will thrive.
There is a wonderful writing called Desiderata that was found on a church wall or window in New England, and nobody knows who wrote it. But part of Desiderata is saying find joy where you can get it, this, that, and the other. It says, no doubt the universe is unfolding exactly as it should. So I think those are words of wisdom to us too, even though just like in our individual lives, when we don't like it when something happens that makes us sad, on the global scale of the earth, we also don't like it when certain things happen around the globe. But if we keep in mind, no doubt the universe is unfolding exactly as it should, because, when scientists that study the cosmos have come up with something they call the chaos theory, because it looks like evolution happens through chaos. It looks very chaotic. And yet, no doubt, the universe is unfolding exactly as it should, even though it looks chaotic.
I opened a puzzle box the other day at work for my clients to be able to put together a puzzle, and I dumped all of the pieces on the table. And I guess I couldn't have seen a better picture of chaos, in that every single piece was separate and in a pile, but all of those pieces actually all fit together. And it would take time for the people sitting at the table to take each piece and put those pieces together. But that's what's required, is for us to not jump to the conclusion that it's all chaos because it appears to be that way.
Right.
Or that the way things are is necessarily as bad as we have assessed it to be. An example of that, I've been listening, as I'm sure you have, to lots and lots of different news sources about what's going on in Ukraine. And one of the most impressive things that I've learned is how long this battle for Ukraine has been going on amongst the Russian oligarchy and amongst the Russian people who believe that Ukraine has always belonged to them. And so you see this spilling out of the energy. The fact that it hadn't blown up until now doesn't mean it wasn't on fire. It doesn't mean.
And in fact, it's happened before there.
Oh, yes.
Russia.
Right. So, but what you see every time you examine a situation or a circumstance is it has a story, it has a history, it has many, many more pieces. And in many cases, it isn't until the pieces are revealed, which is in conflict that is so overt that you can't miss it, that we can identify what we need to do and how we need to do something. So, and I can't draw any conclusions because I don't think it would be appropriate to suggest that anything that I'm thinking about the way it's going to work out is going to be true. What I do see, though, is lots and lots of actions on the parts of lots and lots of people in favor of things working better than they've been working that weren't in place before.
Exactly. When this first happened, I just made the comparison, even though I wasn't even alive then. But I thought, oh my gosh, this is just like Hitler roll in and take over Poland and the whole world does nothing. And that's what it appeared to be at the beginning with the Russians rolling in, although we knew they were going to, and the rest of the world does nothing. But that hasn't happened this time. What's happened differently this time is that so much of the world has come together to create financial sanctions on Russia that are more crippling than any weapons that we could have used, and so the world has come together to aid Ukraine in a way that is more peaceful. And isn't that our goal?
Right.
Our goal is to learn to use peaceful means. And that's what our country is doing by not participating, because we don't want to escalate and create a more powerful weapons being used and more damage being done. So, as Gandhi said, you want to be the peace you want to see in the world. And we need to know that all things are unfolding for our highest good and exactly as they should, even when we can't see how. We have to know that we are evolving and our planet is evolving into a higher consciousness. And we do all that we can with our love and our care and even our sadness.
Yes, and our sadness is simply part of our alert system to the conditions that are going on around us that we need to be alert to, that we need to be sensitive to. I saw recently, it was very powerful. A woman went to one of the shelters to adopt a dog, and 2 dogs had been stray, and they had bonded. We call it trauma bonding. They were bonded through the trauma of being abandoned. Anyway, they were both taken to the kennel or to the shelter, and when she came to see them, you could see the first dog wrapped around the second dog, holding the smaller one of the 2. And she went to adopt the first one, and the second one cried, and the first one cried, and they didn't want to be separated, so she adopted both of them. And so, but what you see is this incredible story of compassion, empathy, emotion, and thinking, all working together for the good of not just one, but for all 3. And how many times have you heard a story where the person said, "I adopted the dog and the dog saved me"? And it's, we think we're doing
the dog and the dog
right.
saved me.
The sadness that person felt because of a loss in their life caused them to go to a shelter to adopt a dog that was also sad about having been abandoned. And they bring the dog home, and the dog helps heal the person's sadness. So sadness is not something to be run away from. It's not something that's wrong with us. It's not a fault. It's part of the human symphony of emotion. And there are no extra notes. There's nothing in it that isn't important.
And also what we have to remind ourselves, we don't believe that death is ultimately even a reality, and that our spirit continues to live. And we have so many stories of near-death experiences where people sometimes decide to come back, but they all talk about how absolutely painless and beautiful being pure spirit is. And so we know that even what appears to be death of a human being is not really death.
Right.
It is ultimately not a death. And so where's the tragedy when you look at it from that point of view?
Even the corporations have gotten onto that. American Express says you can take it with you.
But I want to share a quote that is purported to come from the Buddha. And he says, when you realize how perfect everything is, you will tilt your head back and laugh at the sky. So even what appears to be great tragedy, and certainly the Buddha lived through a lot of that and saw a lot of that. There was a lot of pain and suffering in that time, and said, still, if you see that life is ongoing and this is a temporary experience, that and it's all for you. It's all for your growth and your development, and the pain and the glory, and that it's all good ultimately. So in this regard, with our friends in the Ukraine, we send them our love. We do everything we can to help them, and know that this too shall pass, and,
Right.
and this too will ultimately be for some good.
Well, I was thinking about the caterpillar and asking if the caterpillar were to be talking to another caterpillar, and they would say, "What do you think is a good life?" Well, a good life is that we stay nice and big and fat and green and shiny like we are right now, that there's always lots and lots of leaves. But what do you think about some of the caterpillars like us that have made this thing that they climb into, and I think they die because what shows up afterwards is some other creature that we don't. And it's a terrible thing. There's a great sadness when a caterpillar goes into this thing called you call a cocoon, but see, the caterpillar has no idea that he's going to emerge not as something better, but as something that is necessary and a part of the whole equation of the life experience. And being a butterfly is not better than being a caterpillar, but it's a state that's required for that being to evolve the way it needs to evolve, it wants to evolve. And it's designed, it's in the DNA. So what if life and death is part of our DNA, which we think it is, and we know that when people even begin to die, the brain says that we're ready for this, we know what's going on here. And I've read several stories in the last couple of days about people who the day before or an hour or two before they were going to die, and they had no symptoms of anything being wrong other than that they were in the hospital. They said, well, it's my time, and you need to call so-and-so. And they said, no, it's not you're doing, no, it's my time. An hour later, they died. Okay, so what that says is the consciousness knows about life and death and about beyond. It isn't just about the ending, it's about the continuation. And that's really, really important, is that our whole beingness knows about the whole picture. We're just getting a chance to see a couple of frames of it.
And in that regard, with this, we want to know that eventually the human race is evolving. Yeah. And that the only thing that's acceptable to me is that war is unthinkable, and nobody under any circumstance would think about what do you call it? Starting war, claiming war, participating in that kind of mass murder. That's the goal, is that war for human beings becomes unthinkable. We wouldn't even consider it. And we're not there yet, but hopefully we're evolving to that place where that we can all be peaceful on one planet.
Indeed. This is a good place to, I think, wrap that up.
Yes, it is. Okay, so shall we end with a prayer?
Yeah, and the offering.
Yes, but let's have a prayer first.
You got it.
So let's close right now with a prayer, knowing that we are human beings. We are spiritual beings having a human experience, and we allow ourselves the fullness of that human experience with the joys, the sadness, the growth, the evolution, and we choose for ourselves a purpose, and that purpose is peace, that we choose to be the peace that we want to see in the world at all times. And that is our individual mission. It becomes a global mission. And as we do so, peace grows throughout the world.
Couldn't have said it better. And so it is.
And so it is. So it is. And so we would like to invite you now to support this ministry of the Center for Spiritual Living of the Palm Beaches. And we're going to share a screen now to share with you a way that you can contribute and an offering that you can, an offering affirmation that you can use, because we do believe that as we give, we do receive. And if you want to receive more financial good in your life, you need to give more to the places that are your spiritual inspiration. And so our affirmation is, my investment today is made with the full realization that God is the source of my supply and returns it to me enriched and multiplied. And so it is.
And so it is.
And as you affirm that for yourself, we affirm that for our Center for Spiritual Living. And if you care to donate, you just click on this button when you go to our website, which is cslpalmbeaches.org. And so
now we're going to go to music.
We will turn this off and end the recording.